My sister-in-law laughed and said, "You're not family. You're just who my brother settled with." I smiled because I'd spent 3 years waiting for her to say it out loud in front of everyone. The text message landed like a punch, but it wasn't the words that broke me. It was the crushing silence from my husband and the horrifying clarity that followed. We were barely in the driveway, the engine still warm, when I saw Olivia's silhouette watching us from the living room window. Her arms were crossed, that familiar smirk already playing on her lips. "Just try to have a good time tonight," Ethan murmured, cutting the engine. My stomach clenched. I wanted to ask him, when exactly have I ever had a good time here? But the words died in my throat, swallowed like so many others. We walked up the path, his hand a gentle weight on my back. It used to feel protective. Now it just felt like he was herding me towards another evening of being treated like dirt by his sister. The door opened before we could knock, and there was Olivia, her eyes raking over me like I'd shown up in sweats instead of the nice dress I'd spent an hour picking out. "Finally," she said, stepping aside. "Chloe, perfect timing. I need help in the kitchen." No hello. No, "How are you?" Just a direct order like I was hired staff. Brenda and Robert, Ethan's parents, were already in the living room. Robert was in his usual chair with a drink, Brenda flipping through a magazine. Neither looked up. Neither said a word about Olivia's tone. "The real family can relax in here," Olivia purred, waving Ethan towards the couch. "Chloe, come on. You've finally found something useful to do." My cheeks burned. Ethan squeezed my arm. I looked at him and saw that familiar, pleading expression. The slight head shake, the silent message, "Please don't make this a thing. Just keep the peace." So I went to the kitchen. Olivia followed, already rattling off tasks before I could even wash my hands. "The vegetables need to be cut. The salad needs to be tossed. And try not to mess up the dressing this time," she added. "Last week it was way too oily." I bit my tongue and grabbed a cutting board. The kitchen was beautiful, magazine-worthy. And in the 3 years I'd been married to Ethan, I'd spent more time in here than I had ever felt like part of their family. I started slicing carrots, trying to focus on the rhythmic thud of the knife, not on Olivia hovering behind me. "Not like that," she said, snatching a carrot from my hand. "You're cutting them too thick. Don't you know how to cook?" I adjusted my technique, silent. "I guess not everyone grows up learning the basics," she added, her voice sickly sweet. "Ethan really should have married someone who knew how to take care of a home." From the living room, I could hear Ethan laughing at something Robert said. He was 20 feet away. He probably heard every word. He did nothing. I kept cutting. Olivia kept criticizing. "Tomatoes too big. Cucumber too thin. Wrong knife for the peppers." Every single thing I did was wrong, each correction delivered with that tone that screamed I was stupid, useless, and not good enough for her brother. "Speaking of taking care of things," she said, leaning against the counter like we were two sisters having a casual chat. "When are you and Ethan finally going to give Brenda and Robert some grandchildren? They're not getting any younger, you know." The question hit me square in the chest. He knew. She knew we'd been trying, knew about our struggles. And she still asked like it was my fault, like I was failing at yet another thing wives were supposed to do. "We're working on it," I said, keeping my voice steady. Olivia replied, the sound thick with judgment. "Well, don't wait too long. Although honestly maybe it's for the best. Not everyone is meant to be a mother." I gripped the knife harder, saying nothing. When the food was finally ready, I helped carry everything to the dining room table, Olivia directing me like a caterer. The family gathered, Ethan pulling out my chair in that polite way that looked good but meant nothing. He'd spent the last hour ignoring everything his sister said to me. Dinner started with small talk, work, weather, a neighbor I'd never met. I ate quietly, only speaking when directly asked, just trying to get through the meal without another attack. Then Olivia cleared her throat, that unmistakable prelude to an announcement. "So I've been doing some research," she said, her eyes bright with excitement. "And I found the most amazing resort for a family vacation this summer. Private beach, incredible restaurants, gorgeous rooms." Brenda clapped her hands. "That sounds wonderful." "It really does," Olivia continued. "I was thinking we could all go together. Me, Brenda, Robert, Ethan." She paused, her eyes sliding to me with that little smile. "It would be nice to have some quality time with just the immediate family, you know? Really reconnect." I waited. For Brenda to say I was family too. For Robert to include me. For Ethan to speak up and say his wife was obviously coming. The silence stretched. Ethan reached for his water glass, taking a long sip, his eyes fixed on the table. His parents nodded along with Olivia's ideas, discussing dates and room arrangements like I wasn't even there, like I was completely invisible. I swallowed the anger rising in my throat and picked up my fork. Another Sunday dinner, another evening of being reminded that no matter how many years I was married to Ethan, no matter how hard I tried, Olivia would never see me as family. And apparently neither would anyone else at this table. That night, after Ethan was in the shower, I sat at my desk and did something I'd never done before. I started keeping a journal. I wrote down everything. Every comment Olivia made, every time Ethan looked away instead of defending me. Dates, times. The next morning, I screenshotted text messages Olivia had sent over the past few months, saving them in a special folder. Olivia thought I was just the pushover who would take it forever because I loved her brother. She had no idea I was building something. The next family dinner was in 6 days. I had a plan forming. I was done being the silent target. Monday morning at work, I stared blankly at my computer, replaying Sunday's dinner. Maya, my friend, walked up with 2 coffees but stopped short when she saw my face. "Okay, what happened?" she asked, setting a cup down and pulling up a chair. I checked no one was listening, then spilled everything. The kitchen criticisms, the deliberate exclusion from vacation plans, the gut punch about grandchildren. Maya's eyes widened. Wait, she held up a hand. Ethan was right there and he didn't say anything? I shook my head. He never says anything. He just gives me this look like he's begging me not to cause a scene. Maya leaned back, letting out a long breath. "Chloe, this has been going on for 3 years. 3 years of you going to these dinners, getting treated like garbage, and your husband just sits there." Hearing it said aloud made it sound even worse than it felt. "He thinks if he just stays out of it, things will eventually get better." I heard myself say, the words thin and hollow even to my own ears. "That's not staying out of it," Maya said, leaning forward. "That's picking a side. He's picking her side every time he stays quiet." I wrapped my hands around the warm coffee cup, not drinking, just holding it. Part of me wanted to defend Ethan. He loved me. I knew he did. But loving someone and standing up for them were supposed to be the same thing, weren't they? "Does he even see what she does to you?" Maya's voice was softer now. "Or does he just not care?" The question hung in the air. I didn't have an answer. I wanted to believe he cared but was just bad at confrontation, that he didn't fully understand how bad it was. But deep down I knew the truth. He saw it all. He heard every comment. He just decided that keeping peace with his sister was more important than protecting his wife. Maya squeezed my hand. "You deserve better than this. You know that, right?" I nodded, but I wasn't sure I believed it. 3 years of being told I wasn't good enough, that I didn't belong, that I was lucky Ethan had even married me. After a while you start to wonder if maybe they're right. The morning dragged. By lunchtime I'd made a decision. I was going to call and really talk to him about this, not just hint and hope he'd figure it out. I found a quiet corner in the break room and dialed. He picked up on the 3rd ring. "Hey, what's up?" he said, office sounds in the background. "I wanted to talk about Sunday," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "About how Olivia treated me at dinner." There was a pause. "What about it, Chloe?" "She spent the entire time criticizing me. She made comments about me not being able to cook, about us not having kids yet, about how you could have done better. And then she planned a whole family vacation and didn't include me." I waited for him to apologize, to acknowledge his sister had crossed a line. "That's just how she is," he said, and my heart sank. "She's always been like that. You can't take everything so personally." "How am I supposed to take it?" I asked. "She literally said I'm not part of the immediate family." "She didn't mean it like that," Ethan replied, and I could hear him typing like he was only half listening. "You're being too sensitive. Olivia just has a strong personality. If you just ignore her comments, she'd probably stop making them." I closed my eyes, pressing my fingers to my forehead. "I've been ignoring her comments for 3 years. It's only gotten worse." "Look, I have a meeting in 5 minutes, he said. "Can we talk about this later? Just try not to let her get to you, okay? I'll see you at home." He hung up before I could respond. I stood in the break room, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the silence. "That's just how she is. You're being too sensitive." The words echoed like a verdict. I wasn't being too sensitive. I was being tormented by his sister while he watched and did nothing. And apparently pointing that out made me the problem. The rest of the workday crawled by. Maya checked on me and I told her about the call. She didn't say, "I told you so," but I saw it in her eyes. She'd been warning me for months. By the time I got home, I was exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with work. Ethan was on the couch watching TV. He smiled at me like our earlier conversation had never happened. "Hey, how was your day?" he asked. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Olivia's name flashed on the screen. My stomach tightened as I opened it. "For Sunday dinner, you need to bring that beef dish from the French place downtown. The recipe is online. And make sure you do it right this time, because we all know you don't contribute much else to this family." I read it twice, making sure I wasn't imagining it. She was literally demanding I cook an expensive, complicated dish while simultaneously telling me I was useless. The nerve. The absolute nerve. I walked over to Ethan and held out my phone. "Look at this." He took it, read the text, his expression unchanging. Okay, he said, handing it back. So you'll make the dish. What's the big deal? The big deal. My voice rose. Did you even read what she wrote? She said I don't contribute anything to this family. She's treating me like I'm nothing. Ethan sighed like I was the unreasonable one. Chloe, just make the dish. It's easier than fighting with her about it. You know how Olivia gets when she doesn't get her way. Do you really want to deal with that drama? I stared at him, waiting. For him to acknowledge the cruelty? To offer to call his sister? For him to show any sign he was on my side? Nothing. He just turned back to the TV. That's when it hit me. Really hit me in a way it never had before. I wasn't just alone in this marriage. I was entirely on my own. Ethan wasn't neutral. He wasn't some poor guy stuck in the middle. He was on Olivia's side. He always had been. Every time he told me to keep the peace, every time he dismissed my feelings, every time he let his sister treat me like dirt without a word, he was making a choice. And he never chose me. I looked at Olivia's text again, at those cruel words in writing. Something shifted inside me. This wasn't sadness anymore. It wasn't hurt or disappointment or the desperate hope that things would get better if I just tried harder. This was clarity. Olivia thought she could treat me however she wanted because Ethan would never stop her. She was so brazen, so utterly confident in her impunity, she didn't even bother hiding her cruelty anymore. She wrote it down in black and white, convinced there would never be consequences. Oh, she was wrong. I saved the screenshot, adding it to my folder. The expensive dish she wanted? I was going to make it. I was going to show up to Sunday dinner with a smile just like always. But I was also going to be ready. Because the next time Olivia came for me, I wasn't going to sit there and take it. I had a folder full of proof. I had 3 years of patience that had finally run out, and I had absolutely nothing left to lose. The week that followed was unlike any I'd had in the past 3 years. I spent hours in the kitchen, practicing that beef dish until I could make it with my eyes closed. But the cooking wasn't what I was preparing for. Every night after Ethan went to bed, I sat with my journal. I practiced what I would say when Olivia made her first comment. I practiced staying calm when she criticized my cooking. I practiced looking her in the eye instead of down at my plate. I even practiced in front of the bathroom mirror, watching my own face to ensure I looked confident, not scared. Sounds crazy, but I needed to be ready. Olivia had spent 3 years catching me off guard. This time I was going to be the one with a plan. By Wednesday the dish was perfected, my responses rehearsed. I felt strong. Then Thursday happened and everything got so much worse. At my desk, my phone buzzed with a text from an unrecognized number. Hey Chloe, this is Aunt Carol from the reunion last year. I just wanted to reach out because I heard things haven't been easy for you and Ethan lately. If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here. I stared at it. Things hadn't been easy? What had she heard? I typed back asking what she meant. Her response made my blood run cold. Oh honey. Olivia mentioned at the last family gathering that you've been having a hard time adjusting to married life. She said you've been difficult lately and it's been causing some problems between you and Ethan. I just wanted you to know that marriage is hard and it's normal to struggle. I read those words over and over, sick to my stomach. Olivia had been talking about me to the extended family. She'd been telling people I was difficult, making it sound like I was the problem in my own marriage. I thought about all those family events, all those cousins and aunts and uncles who gave me weird looks or seemed a little cold. I'd blamed myself, thinking I wasn't good at connecting. But it wasn't me. It was Olivia poisoning everyone against me before I even had a chance. I was still in shock when Maya came over with our usual afternoon coffee. She took one look at my face and pulled up a chair. What happened? I showed her the text. Her eyes went wide. Are you kidding me? She's been spreading rumors about you. I nodded, unable to speak. Maya handed back my phone, then got a strange look on her face like she was debating something. Okay, I wasn't sure if I should mention this, she said slowly. But I think you need to know. I ran into Leo, Ethan's cousin, at a coffee shop yesterday. My heart pounded. What did he say? Maya took a deep breath. We got to talking and your name came up. He said Olivia told him that you've been trying to isolate Ethan from his family. She said you don't want him spending time with them and that you've been making him choose. I felt all the air leave the room. She said what? She's been telling people you're the one causing problems, Maya said, squeezing my hand. She's been making you look like the bad guy this whole time. Leo seemed really surprised when I told him you go to every family dinner and Olivia treats you like garbage. He had no idea. I sat back, mind racing. This was so much bigger than I thought. Olivia hadn't just been cruel to my face. She'd been running a whole campaign behind my back, turning everyone against me while I smiled and tried to keep the peace. Every time I thought I was being the bigger person by staying quiet, she was using my silence against me. She was telling everyone I was difficult and controlling while I was in the kitchen doing whatever she told me. The worst part. It had worked. All those family members who never quite warmed up to me, who always seemed to take Olivia's side, who looked at me like an outsider even after 3 years. They believed her. They believed her lies. I left work early, telling my boss I wasn't feeling well. It wasn't a lie, I felt like throwing up. I drove home, hands shaking on the steering wheel, trying to figure out what to do. Ethan was already home on his laptop at the kitchen table. He looked up, smiling that easy smile that used to make me feel safe. "You're home early," he said. "Everything okay?" I stood in the doorway looking at the man I'd married, the man who was supposed to be my partner. Then I asked the question I was dreading. "Did you know that Olivia has been telling people I'm difficult? That I'm causing problems in our marriage? That I'm trying to isolate you from your family?" Ethan's face changed. It was subtle, just a flicker, but I saw it. He knew. He already knew. "Chloe," he started, his voice adopting that careful tone he used when trying to manage me. "Where is this coming from?" "Just answer the question," I said. "Did you know?" He closed his laptop and sighed. That sigh told me everything before he even opened his mouth. "I heard some things," he admitted, "but I didn't want to make things worse by bringing it up. You were already upset about how Olivia treats you at dinner. And I thought if I mentioned the other stuff it would just make you more stressed." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You knew your sister was spreading lies about me and you didn't think I deserved to know?" "They're not lies exactly," Ethan said, and my jaw dropped. "She's just sharing her perspective. She thinks you don't like her, and sometimes perception becomes reality, you know?" "Her perspective," I repeated. "Her perspective is that I'm trying to steal you away from your family? Her perspective is that I'm the problem? Then I go to every single family dinner. I cook whatever she asks me to cook. I take every insult and every criticism with a smile because you asked me to keep the peace. And you're telling me you knew she was saying these things about me and you just let it happen?" He stood and tried to reach for me, but I stepped back. "I was trying to protect you," he said. "I thought if you didn't know it wouldn't hurt you." "Protect me?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "How is letting your sister destroy my reputation protecting me? How is letting everyone in your family think I'm the villain protecting me? You weren't protecting me, Ethan. You were protecting yourself. You were avoiding a hard conversation with your sister because that was easier than standing up for your wife." He had no answer. He just stood there looking helpless, like he was the victim, like I was being unfair. And that's when I finally understood. Olivia hadn't just been cruel to my face for 3 years. She'd been running a whole operation behind my back, turning every family member into someone who would take her side, making sure that if I ever tried to speak up, no one would believe me. It was calculated. It was deliberate. And Ethan had let it happen. He'd watched his sister destroy his wife's reputation with his own family, and he'd done nothing because confrontation was uncomfortable. He'd known about the lies and chosen to keep them from me, not to protect me but to avoid dealing with the mess. I thought about all those times I'd question myself, wondering why I couldn't connect, wondering what I was doing wrong. I'd spent 3 years thinking I was the problem when the whole time Olivia had been making sure I would always be the outsider. I walked past Ethan to our bedroom, closing the door behind me. I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled out my journal, adding this new information. The lies, the rumors, the campaign against me, Ethan knowing and saying nothing. 47 documented incidents in 8 months. Texts saved, witnesses noted. Sunday dinner was in 2 days. This time when Olivia came for me, I wasn't going to be silent. I was going to be ready. Sunday arrived faster than I expected. Or maybe it just felt that way because I'd spent every moment leading up to it preparing. I woke up feeling different than I ever had before family dinner. No dread, no anxiety. Just a calm, steady feeling like I was finally ready to do what I should have done years ago. I spent the morning cooking the beef dish, following every step perfectly. It looked like something from a fancy restaurant. Ethan watched me pack it and didn't mention our fight. He'd been walking on eggshells, but he still hadn't apologized. He still hadn't called his sister to tell her to stop. He was just waiting for things to blow over like always. The drive to Brenda and Robert's house was quiet. Ethan tried to make small talk, but I gave short answers, staring out the window. He had no idea what was coming. Neither did Olivia. We pulled into the driveway and I grabbed the dish from the back seat, holding it carefully. My heart beat fast, but my hands were steady. I'd practiced. I was ready. Olivia opened the door before we could knock, just like always. Her eyes went straight to the dish in my hands. Well, she said, stepping aside. "Looks like Chloe finally learned to cook something decent. I'm honestly shocked it didn't come out looking like a mess." Brenda and Robert were in the living room, Brenda adjusting napkins, Robert pouring a drink. They both looked over when Olivia made her comment. I waited for one of them to say something, to tell her that was rude, to defend me. Brenda just smiled, that tight smile she always had. Robert chuckled along with Olivia, like it was the funniest thing he'd heard all day. She's been practicing all week, Ethan said. I couldn't tell if he was trying to defend me or just make conversation. Either way, it didn't help. Practicing. Olivia repeated, eyebrows raised. For one dish. I guess some people need more help than others. She laughed at her own joke. Brenda and Robert laughed too. Ethan pulled out his phone and started scrolling. I carried the dish to the kitchen, taking a moment to breathe. This was exactly what I expected. This was what always happened. But tonight it was going to end differently. Dinner started the same way. We sat around the table, passing dishes, making small talk. I served the beef. Everyone took a portion. Olivia made a show of examining hers before taking a bite. Not bad, she said, feigning surprise. I mean, it's not as good as the restaurant version, but I guess it's fine for someone who doesn't really know what she's doing in a kitchen. Brenda nodded. Robert kept eating without looking up. And Ethan, my husband, the man who promised to love and protect me, just kept scrolling on his phone under the table. I ate my food, saying nothing. Not yet. I knew Olivia. She always built up to her worst comments. She liked to test the waters, see how much she could get away with before going in for the kill. I just had to wait. The conversation moved on. Robert talked golf. Brenda mentioned redecorating the guest room. Olivia brought up the vacation, still not including me in any details. I sat there quietly while they discussed dates and hotels like I was invisible. Then Olivia put down her fork and looked right at me, that smile I knew so well. The one that meant she was about to say something cruel and enjoy every second. You know, she said, her voice carrying across the table, I was just thinking about this the other day. Ethan, do you remember when you were dating that girl from college? The one who went to law school. Ethan finally looked up from his phone, confused. What? You know who I mean, Olivia continued. She was so smart and driven. I always thought you two would end up together. Brenda and Robert loved her. Brenda made a little sound of agreement. She was lovely, she said. Very accomplished, right? Olivia turned her attention back to me, her eyes sharp. I'm just saying Ethan could have done so much better. Don't you think? She was looking directly at me. Not hinting, not subtle. Just saying it right to my face in front of everyone. The table went silent. Brenda and Robert stopped eating. Ethan's hand froze over his phone. Everyone was looking at me, waiting. Waiting for me to cry like I did 2 years ago when she made fun of my job. Waiting for me to excuse myself and hide in the bathroom like I did when she mocked my family. Waiting for me to just take it, swallow it down, and keep being the quiet, easy target I'd always been. I put my fork down slowly. I wiped my mouth with my napkin. Then I did something I'd never done before. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Actually, Olivia, I said, my voice calm and clear, not shaking at all. I think it's time everyone heard what you really think of this family. Olivia's smile flickered. Excuse me, she said, trying to sound amused, but I heard the uncertainty. She'd spent 3 years watching me crumble. She had no idea how to handle this. I've been keeping track, I said, holding up my phone. Every text you've sent me. Every cruel thing you've said. Every lie you've told about me to the rest of the family. I looked around the table, at Brenda and Robert, at Ethan, at Olivia's face, which had gone pale. Did you know that Olivia has been telling everyone I'm difficult? That I'm trying to isolate Ethan from his family? That I'm the problem in my own marriage? Brenda's forehead wrinkled. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the truth, I said. The truth Olivia has been hiding behind her sweet act while she tears me apart every chance she gets. And I'm done being quiet about it. Olivia let out a nervous laugh. Chloe, this is so dramatic. I don't know what you think you have on that phone, but this isn't the time or place. No, I said, shaking my head. This is exactly the time and place. You chose this dinner table to humiliate me week after week. So, this is where everyone is going to find out who you really are. Ethan finally spoke, his voice carrying that warning tone. Chloe, come on. Let's not do this right now. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw exactly what I expected. Fear. Not fear for me, not fear that I was hurt. Fear that his comfortable life was about to get messy. Fear that he might actually have to pick a side. You've been telling me not now for 3 years, I said. Not now when she mocks me in the kitchen. Not now when she excludes me from family plans. Not now when she tells everyone I'm the villain. Well, guess what? Now is happening whether you like it or not. I turned back to Olivia, who was gripping her wine glass so tight her knuckles were white. Let's start with the texts, I said, unlocking my phone. I think everyone deserves to know what you really say when you think no one is watching. The look on Olivia's face when I didn't crumble was worth 3 years of her garbage. Her smile twisted into something ugly and fake. She laughed, a nervous, shaky sound. Oh, please, Chloe. You're not going to sit here and make up stories, she said, but her voice wasn't as confident as it had been 5 minutes ago. Ethan started to say my name, that warning tone creeping in. Chloe, maybe we should talk about this at home. But I was done protecting everyone's comfort at the cost of my dignity. Done making myself smaller so they could feel better. I had screenshots of every cruel text she'd sent. I had the voicemail she left last month calling me a gold digger. I had 3 years of receipts and a table full of people who were about to learn exactly who they'd been defending. This was it. The moment I'd been preparing for all week. The moment Olivia's mask came off. I scrolled to the first text and held my phone up, though I was going to read it aloud anyway. This is from 6 months ago, I said, my voice steady. Olivia texted me and said, make sure you bring dessert to dinner on Sunday since we all know you can't handle anything more complicated than that. I looked at Brenda. That was the week I made the entire meal myself because Olivia told me you weren't feeling well and needed help. Brenda's face went still. I never said I needed help, she murmured. But I was already moving on. Here's another one from 4 months ago, I said, scrolling down. Ethan deserves someone who actually comes from a good family, not whatever trailer park situation you crawled out of. That's a direct quote, by the way. I paused. She sent that after the dinner where she asked about my parents, and I told her they passed away when I was young. The room was so quiet I could hear the clock ticking. Olivia's face had gone from pale to red, her jaw tight, her hands gripping the edge of the table. Those are taken out of context, she said quickly. You're twisting my words. Am I? I asked, tilting my head. Let me read a few more and you can tell me what context makes them okay. I kept going, reading text after text, watching the faces around the table change. There was the one where she called me a gold digger who trapped Ethan. The one where she said I was too stupid to know I was being insulted. The one where she bragged about how easy it was to make me cry at Christmas dinner 2 years ago. But the best one, the one I'd been saving, was still coming. I paused and looked at Brenda and Robert. Really looked at them. They'd spent 3 years watching their daughter treat me like garbage and they'd never said a word. They'd laughed at her jokes, nodded along, pretended not to notice when she made me feel like nothing. I wanted to know if they'd keep defending her after this. This next one is interesting, I said, scrolling to a text from last month. Olivia sent this to me after the dinner where you both agreed with her that I should be the one to clean up the kitchen by myself. She was thanking me for being such an easy target and then she said this. I took a breath and read the words aloud. Thank God Brenda and Robert are such useful idiots. They take my side every single time without even thinking about it. All I have to do is smile and they believe whatever I tell them about you. It's almost too easy. The silence that followed was different. Not just uncomfortable quiet. This was shock. Brenda put her hand over her mouth. Robert's face went dark red. For the first time since I'd known him, he looked genuinely angry. What did you just say? He asked. But he wasn't looking at me. He was looking at Olivia. She's lying. Olivia said immediately, her voice high and fast. I never wrote that. He made it up. He probably edited those screenshots or something. You know how easy it is to fake text these days. She looked around desperately, searching for someone who would believe her, who would take her side like they always did. This is crazy. You're all actually going to believe her over me? I'm your daughter. Brenda was staring at Olivia like she'd never seen her before. Did you really say that about us? She asked, her voice small and hurt. Of course not. Olivia slammed her hand on the table. She's making this whole thing up because she can't handle that nobody in this family likes her. She's been trying to turn everyone against me since the day Ethan brought her home. I opened my mouth to respond. But before I could, someone else spoke up. A voice I didn't expect. Actually, that's not true. Everyone turned to look at the doorway. Leo, Ethan's cousin, was standing there. I hadn't even known he was coming to dinner tonight. He must have arrived while we were all sitting down, let himself in through the back like family always did. He walked into the dining room slowly, looking at Olivia with an expression I couldn't quite read. I ran into Chloe's friend at a coffee shop last week, he said. She told me some things that made me think. So, I started paying more attention to what Olivia was saying about Chloe when she wasn't around. Olivia's face went even paler. Leo, this is none of your business. You told me Chloe was trying to isolate Ethan from the family, Leo continued, ignoring her. You told me she was controlling and difficult and that Ethan was miserable but too nice to leave her. You told me all kinds of stuff about her and I believed you because you're family and I had no reason not to. He shook his head slowly. But none of it was true, was it? You were just saying whatever you needed to say to make everyone hate her. Olivia stood so fast her chair scraped against the floor. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to sit here and be attacked by my own family. No one is attacking you, I said. I'm just telling the truth. Something you should try sometime. The look she gave me was pure hatred. The mask was completely gone now. This was the real Olivia. The one she'd been hiding behind that sweet smile for years. The one who called her parents useful idiots and destroyed my reputation for fun. The one who made me feel worthless and alone in my own marriage while my husband did nothing. Speaking of my husband, I looked over at Ethan, who had been sitting silent through all of this. His phone was finally off the table, his hands folded in front of him, his eyes moving between me and Olivia like he was watching a tennis match. I waited for him to say something. To finally, after 3 years, stand up and tell his sister that what she did was wrong. To apologize for all the times he'd looked the other way. To choose me just once over keeping the peace with Olivia. Everyone at the table was waiting. Brenda and Robert were looking at him. Leo was looking at him. Even Olivia was looking at him, probably expecting him to smooth things over like he always did. Ethan cleared his throat. He opened his mouth. And the words that came out broke whatever was left of my heart. "Chloe," he said slowly, carefully, like he was talking to a child throwing a tantrum. "This isn't the time or place for this." I stared at him. After everything I'd just shared. After all the texts I'd read. After his own cousin confirmed Olivia had been spreading lies. After his parents heard their daughter call them useful idiots. After all of that, the only thing Ethan had to say was that this wasn't the time or place. "Are you serious right now?" I asked, my voice cracking slightly. Not from sadness, from the absolute disbelief that this man, the man I'd married, the man I defended to my friends when they said I deserved better, could still be this much of a coward. "I just think we should talk about this privately," he said, glancing at his parents, embarrassed. "This is a family dinner. We don't need to air all our problems in front of everyone." "Our problems," I repeated. "Ethan, your sister has been making my life miserable for 3 years. She's been lying to everyone in your family about who I am. She literally called your parents idiots in a text message. And you're worried about making dinner awkward." He held up his hands, trying to calm me down. "I'm just saying this could have been handled differently. You didn't have to do this in front of everyone. We could have talked to Olivia privately and worked things out." Something clicked into place in my chest. Something final. This was who he was. This was who he'd always been. Not a man caught in the middle trying to keep everyone happy. Not a man who loved me but didn't know how to handle conflict. He was a man who would watch his wife be destroyed rather than have an uncomfortable conversation. He was a man who would tell me I was overreacting while his sister called me trash. He was a man who would never, ever choose me. I pushed my chair back. The sound it made against the floor was loud in the silent room. "You're right," I said, looking straight at Ethan. "There's never a good time for you to choose me." I picked up my purse from the back of my chair. My hands weren't shaking. My voice wasn't breaking. I felt calm in a way I hadn't felt in years. "So I'm done waiting." I walked around the table, past Brenda, who was still staring at Olivia in shock. Past Robert, who looked like he didn't know what to do with his hands. Past Leo, who gave me a small nod that might have been respect. Olivia said something as I passed her, something about me being dramatic and making a scene, but I didn't even look at her. She didn't matter anymore. None of them did. I stopped at the dining room doorway and turned back one last time. Ethan was still sitting there, frozen, like he couldn't believe I was actually leaving. Like he'd spent so long watching me take it that he'd forgotten I had the option to go. "I loved you," I said to him. "I loved you enough to put up with all of this for 3 years because I thought you'd eventually stand up for me. But you never did. And now I know you never will." I turned and walked through the living room, past the family photos on the walls where I'd never really belonged anyway. Past the couch where I'd sat through so many dinners feeling invisible and worthless. I opened the front door and stepped out into the cool evening air. Behind me I could hear voices rising. Olivia shouting that I was crazy. Brenda asking Olivia if all those texts were real. Robert saying something about needing a serious conversation. Ethan calling my name finally. Too late. Like he just realized what he was losing. I closed the door behind me and walked to my car. The keys were in my hand before I even realized I'd pulled them out. I unlocked the door, got in, and just sat there for a moment, my hands on the steering wheel, looking at the house where I'd spent 3 years trying to earn a place I was never going to get. The front door opened and Ethan came running out. His face panicked, his mouth moving, saying my name over and over. But I was already turning the key in the ignition, already putting the car in reverse, already choosing myself for the first time in 3 years. I backed out of the driveway and drove away without looking in the rearview mirror. Whatever chaos was happening in that house, whatever fallout was coming from Olivia's exposure, whatever Ethan was going to say to try to fix this, none of it was my problem anymore. For the first time since I'd married into that family, I felt like I could breathe. What do you think will happen next for Chloe?